Even if it doesn't come up in a medical interview, the question, why do you want to be a doctor, is probably the most important question that you must be able to answer if you're thinking about a career in medicine. If you clicked on this video looking for the perfect regurgitatable answer that will guarantee you a place in med school, then I'm sorry to say you're not going to find it here. However, if you're looking for more than just an answer to an interview question, if you're looking deeper for your own true motives so that you can evaluate whether all the future sacrifice is going to be worth it, then what I share here today will be useful for you. Make sure to stick around to the end of this video, because at the end I'll be sharing a list of what I see as the pros and cons of a career in medicine, which will be a useful tool in helping you decide whether this career pathway is right for you. I actually want to start off firstly by talking about my journey of getting into med school. My decision to become a doctor was something that for the longest time I thought that I actively chose of my own volition without any other external influence. I made this decision probably around the time when I was in year 10, when I decided to do my work experience at the local hospital. This decision influenced my life enormously in those years, leading up to me actually getting into med school. I knew that getting into med school was going to be tough and competitive, and so in order to do this, I'd need to make significant sacrifices. In year 12, I actually stopped playing soccer for Hamilton Olympic, as we were playing at quite a competitive level, and I know that I didn't have the time to be able to train the 2 to 3 times per week that was expected. In hindsight, this might actually be one of my biggest regrets in life, as that time spent playing soccer with Hamilton Olympic were some of the best moments of my teenage life. In year 12, I also started studying more and doing other more fun things less, with the view that once I got into med school, it would all be worth it. And then I didn't get in. It was the start of 2016, and I was absolutely devastated when I found out. I hadn't really prepared myself for failure, and I didn't really have a backup plan. So I did what many students who failed to get into med school but didn't have a backup plan did. I went into biomedical science. I studied hard my first year, and my plan was to get good grades, then resit the UMAT, and then try again at the end of the year. And I was lucky enough to get an interview here at the University of Newcastle. And I remember the night before the interview, I was trying to do some prep with my sister, and I just felt so overwhelmed by how unprepared that I was that I just lay on my bed and cried. I think I realized that even though I spent so much time preparing throughout the year for the 2 other aspects of the med school application, the grades and the UMAT, I was disastrously unprepared for the interview. And so if I failed again, which was looking likely, I'd have to do it all over again the following year. And I just felt so disappointed in myself for putting all this effort in and all this work in only to fall at the last hurdle. And it probably comes as no surprise that with a mindset like that, I didn't perform well in the interview. And again, I was unsuccessful. So I told myself, okay, this is the year. You really need to continue working hard, knuckle down, and get started on interview prep earlier than last year so that the mess that happened last year doesn't happen again. And at this point, part of my motivation for actually getting into med school was simply to prove to myself that I could. Thankfully, again, I got the grades that I wanted, I got the UMAT that I wanted, and I was lucky enough to get 2 interviews at different universities. With the support of my family, I was able to prepare for them much better than I had the previous year. I wasn't going to let all this hard work go to waste. And looking back, I genuinely don't think I could have prepared any better across the 3 domains of the med school application process. If I had failed, I would have had nothing to blame it on. I could not have worked any harder. And so if I didn't get in, it was just not meant to be. I'm not sure that I would have applied again because I knew that I couldn't have done any more. And that was probably one of the more scary realizations that I had, because for the first time in my life, I felt like I didn't have control. I always thought that if I worked hard enough at something, then I'd be able to make it. But now, despite putting all the hours in, if the interviewer that I was with thought that I wouldn't make a good doctor, well, that would be it. And this is actually kind of false, I guess, because If I really wanted to, I could have gone to a private university and paid an exorbitant amount of money to get into med school there, but I didn't have that kind of money, and so that was never really an option. Those weeks waiting for the outcome of those interviews were some of the longest weeks of my life. I remember waking up on my mum's birthday at like 6 a.m, fumbling with my phone in the dark as I tried to log into the website where my judgment awaited me. Was I worthy? I don't know why I'm making this all dramatic. You already know that I got in. And later that morning, I walked into my mum's room as soon as I found out, and I woke her up because I needed to tell someone. And she started crying, and I was tearing up, and it's definitely one of my most treasured memories. Finally, all my years of hard work and sacrifice had paid off. You can see that one of the clear issues here is that I place so much of my identity on medicine, and I don't think that I'm the only one. Medicine is quite a consuming career and it requires a lot of sacrifices, and I think a lot of doctors derive their self-worth from their work, which I believe is problematic. Anyways, at this stage you're probably thinking, yeah, that's a nice story, but what's that got to do with me getting into med school? And that's so fair. So let me try and make this more relevant to you. When I made that decision in year 10, I thought I was making that decision for me. I thought that helping other people was the purpose of life, and that being a doctor was my pathway to doing this. And that's still true to an extent. But as I reflect now, knowing more about myself and human psychology, and having what I believe is a more well-rounded opinion of meaning in life, I guess I've realized that another part of the reason why I wanted to do medicine was actually to make my parents proud. But of course, I couldn't really say that in an interview. That was a sure way to not get into med school. And admittedly, I didn't actually know that was a motive at the time. Instead, my answer defaulted to the surface level things that I genuinely believed were the main things that interested me about a career in medicine. Things like helping people, and I enjoy biological sciences and learning about the human body and problem solving. These are all aspects of medicine that I do truly love. And so when I was asked this question at an interview, my answer was genuine. Now, I actually think it's fine if you do something to make someone else proud, as long as that is not the main factor. Like, for example, if there are 10 different factors contributing to you making a decision, then in my opinion, doing it for someone else can't be weighted more than 25 to 35% of that decision. And I know I just pulled that number out of my backside, but you cannot predominantly do something as big as your career for someone else. The question that I never really asked myself was, why shouldn't I become a doctor? If I did, perhaps I would have looked at more of the negatives of a career in medicine, such as the long hours, the massive stress, the bullying culture in some hospitals, the emotional toll of being exposed to death and disability, the high burnout and suicide rates, the fact that administrative tasks occupy more time than actually seeing patients, along with countless others. I convinced myself that I was doing medicine only for me, and so all the sacrifices that I was making were naturally worth it. However, now that I recognize that I chose this career not just for me alone, I'm having to re-evaluate the sacrifices that I'm continuing to make to help decide whether in fact these are worth it. For example, the other day I was working on a research project and I wasn't really enjoying what I was doing particularly compared to other things that I could have been doing. And I thought to myself, if I don't enjoy this that much, why do I subject myself to this? I could just do one of these other things that I want to do. Now, I'm sorry that this is coming across as all doom and gloom. I'm not trying to deter you from choosing a career in medicine. I just want you to know every single personal motive that you have for choosing medicine, and all the reasons maybe you shouldn't as well. I genuinely do love medicine, and there are so many positive aspects to it that I know I enjoy, and I'm sure it's very rewarding at times too. But it can also be extremely draining and difficult if your heart's not in it for the right reasons. And you've also got to consider that there are so many other things that you could do that are equally as fun and rewarding, albeit in different ways. And of course, these will also have their fair share of negatives, but like, say I'm a YouTuber and I make an error when I'm editing, and for whatever reason the music is too loud such that you can't hear the words that I'm saying. A mistake like that doesn't even compare to, for example, if I was on a night shift and I'm under the pump and I'm sleep deprived and there's a patient who's got pneumonia and they need penicillin or some other kind of antibiotic, and I accidentally chart them penicillin, but they have a penicillin allergy, and all of a sudden they have an anaphylactic reaction and they die. Are the two really comparable? I guess at the end of this story, you're probably thinking, well, was it worth it? Do you regret choosing medicine? If you could go back and do it all over again, would you? The truth is that I 100% do not regret this journey, but I'm not sure whether I would do it again. So I'm actually editing this video now, and I just wanted to give you an update about my stance on this. So I've been thinking about this a little bit more since I recorded this video, and I think if I did have the opportunity to do it all over again, I would. Because the thing is that if I hadn't had done this, I would not have known that the negatives would have outweighed the positives, and there would have been this part of me that would have always been thinking, what if? What if I had gotten into medicine, and what if I really enjoyed working as a doctor? And so the 5 years that I've been studying for med school and the 3 years before that when I was trying to get into med school, none of that has really been a waste. It's all helped me get to this place where I've realized that, medicine is still something that I want to do, but it does have its drawbacks. And because of these drawbacks, I probably don't want to do it as a full-time career. It is still something that I want to be part of my life in the future, but probably on a part-time basis. And so those past 7 years, have really kind of helped me come to this decision. But at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. That's all in the past and I can't change that. What I can do is focus on the future. There's this wonderful graphic that I came across on Twitter that really illustrates this perfectly. Right now, there are an infinite number of possibilities as to what I or you could do. And this novelty really excites me. I am the master of my life and I get to choose what path I want to take. Now, as promised, here are a list of all the pros and cons that I see in a career in medicine. Bear in mind that this applies to the traditional pathway that most medical graduates take, i.e. working as a clinician. But of course, there are many other careers that you can choose to work in once you have a medical degree, if you decide that the traditional pathway is not what you want to pursue. As you can see, there are so many potential positives to being a doctor, and equally as many negatives. And ultimately, it's up to you to decide whether you value the pros more than the cons. Getting into medical school is a privilege. There are so many people out there who want to be a doctor, and who unfortunately don't get the opportunity to do so. It's definitely not a decision that should be made lightly. I'll finish with this quote from Going Under, a fictional book written by an Australian doctor, Sonia Henry, which I feel perfectly encapsulates medicine as a career. It goes, "Someone should have warned me, I think to myself, that once you stand on the platform that says medical school and board the train, there are no further stops. You can't get off the train again, not even for a bit of a scenic stopover. Destination eternity." So that's it. If you found this video helpful, please subscribe to my channel by clicking this little icon here, as in the future I will be making many more videos about medicine, developing self-awareness, and designing a fulfilling life. If you want to see other videos that I've made about medicine, click here. And if you want to see videos that I've made about the components of my productivity/reflection system, then click here. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.